Hello everyone, this is Highlander from MTG Cardsmith, doing another custom Magic the Gathering card review, and I've got my special guest with me today, Island Snake.
Hey everybody.
And today we're reviewing a card by TGBC from his set Corrinella. This is called Heterochromatic Neko Spy. Now, heterochromatic, does that mean single, like monocolor?
I believe it means your eyes have different colors.
Oh, is that what that means? Let's see.
I think so.
Define heterochromatic. Of several different colors. Okay.
Yeah, just type in heterochromatic eyes and it'll just be, it's like a common trope.
Yeah, heterochromatic. Okay, you're right.
The special character has different color eyes. Big points off for having the heterochromia covered up by an eye patch.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well,
she's faking it, I think. That's the thing. We don't even know.
Or she's ashamed because like the color of her eye is like, puke green or something.
Also, heterochromia makes seems like a bad trait to be like a spy with, right?
That's
like you
true.
Stand out.
That's true. I mean, and the same is true for an eye patch, right? An eye patch also makes you stand out. So.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's a very good.
Hey, human cat row. They actually remember there was cards in earlier sets where they didn't take the trait and put it on there.
You're right. We did it. We did it, fam. All right, so let's see what we got here. This is a common, double white. Okay, 2/2. Okay, so decent stats. Double white's a little rough, but let's see what we got going on here. Bio Augment, 2 and 2 white. What does this mean? Put an augment counter onto Heterochromatic Neko Spy if it doesn't have an augment counter on it. Augment only as a sorcery. If Heterochromatic Neko Spy loses its augment counter, sacrifice it. While augmented, Heterochromatic Neko Spy has vigilance.
Okay.
So basically, this is a 2-mana 2/2 that if you pay 4 mana, it gains vigilance. Okay. I mean, that's fine. It doesn't seem...
How would it ever lose its augment counter?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so... Here's my thoughts about that. And this is where it becomes a little tricky to review an entire set. Mm-hmm. But just looking... So, before I continue, actually... for those of you who show me sets, I highly recommend you take a look at the way Arceus... he's like one of the first, Arceus 8523. On the first page of the forum post, the way he lays out his set cards is great. Because it introduces things as they need to be introduced before you see things that use those mechanics as a payoff, if that makes sense. So for example, with the destruction, well, let me talk about this one. For example, okay.
There's going to be other augments.
Well, not only that. I assume there are going to be other augments because this is a keyworded mechanic. But the thing is, if Heterochromatic Neko Spy loses its augment counter, sacrifice it, right? Mm-hmm. Are there ways in the set to get rid of augment counters? I don't know. If there are, this may make sense. If there are not, then I think that this is probably just here for flavor, and it should probably just be removed. Because it's just extra complexity for, no reason.
Now, you're augmenting as a sorcery, so does that mean it does not tap?
Well...
you just pay the costs whenever you're allowed to cast sorceries, and you can give it okay.
So as sorcery means this when you're able to do this. Because otherwise this would be at instant speed.
Does that mean it can be counterspelled?
No. Okay. It just means sorcery speed. That's all it means. So you can only do it on your main phase.
This seems pretty not worth, right? Village, is that ever, is it worth to give a 2/2?
I mean, here's how I would see this card play out. Is you would cast this as a 2-mana 2/2. And it would stay at 2-mana 2/2 for most of the game. And then at some point when you run out of things to do, you'll just do this, and the effect won't matter, essentially. So yeah, that's kind of my issue with this card here is Vigilance is a pretty minor upside, especially on a counter that could potentially, if there's a way to remove it, kill this creature. I'm going to go under the assumption that there aren't, until proven otherwise, there aren't any ways to remove these counters in the set. Like, there's no special mechanic about that, about removing like augment counters from things. If my assumption is correct, then you could just completely get rid of this line because it makes this ability weaker, but like barely weaker because removing counters is not like a common thing, and it just adds extra complexity for like no reason. I mean, I get it; it's a little flavorful maybe because you're like augmenting your body or whatever, but like the payoff is not worth the extra line of text here, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, now if my assumption's not correct, then I would never buy augment this card because it means that I get a very small upside and I open my creature up to being killed, removed through some means, right? So I think either way, I don't like this line here. I don't think that should be there. Now, let's ignore
How about the first line. Like, it seems, is that something that you have to specify where, like, put this on there if it doesn't already have it? Like, why would you try to cast it if it already had it anyway? Like, it seems kind of redundant to mention.
That's true. That is true, but yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I guess the only reason that might matter is if you have cards where, like,
the augment gives you like other stuff that you don't want to stack.
Yeah, like a +1/+1 counter.
Yeah, I'm assuming that this might be like a generic augment,
yes,
like subtext or whatever.
Yeah. The way this is worded, it's worded like a set mechanic, which means there are going to be other cards that have this mechanic.
Fair enough.
And therefore, maybe it depends on how the augment stuff is worded. But anyway, okay. So ignoring all that. How good is this card? I think this card's pretty bad, actually. Okay, so a vanilla 2-mana 2/2 is not good. It's just not a good card. You don't play that most of the time, right? Especially double white. So double white, you generally only use for like. This extra white makes the card more difficult to cast, especially on curve in a 2-color deck. And that means that you need to actually provide a reason for the player to want to put this card in their deck because it makes the card more difficult to cast. Usually it's because the card is more powerful than a normal 2-drop. This card's actually weaker than a normal 2-drop because...
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems weaker.
Because a vanilla 2-mana 2/2 is not a card. They don't even print those anymore, because they're just not good. Now, I believe there have been a couple cards printed recently that are a generic and a white for a 2/2 vigilance, and you just get the vigilance for free. Okay, that's a little bit on the weaker side, but it's sort of. But that's like an actual card, basically.
Yeah.
Right? Here, you're paying extra for a vanilla 2/2, and you have to pay 4 to give this card vigilance, which like you're just never doing, in my opinion. Because, like, okay, so let's imagine a scenario where you're playing a white aggressive deck, okay? So in a white aggressive deck, you want to curve out with creatures. So you're gonna play like a 1-drop if you're lucky. Then you're gonna play this. Then you're gonna play a 3-drop. And then on turn 4, do you want to spend 4 mana to give this vigilance, or do you want to maybe play a 4-drop or cast a removal spell or do something that actually like affects the board?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So here's my suggestion for how to sort of make this card a little bit better, I guess, for lack of a better word. So here's something you could do. If you wanted to keep the cost, you could actually make this a white 2/3. So it's actually, the stats are actually pretty good for the cost. Well, for 2 mana, I should say, for the slot it's in, right? So a double white 2/3, and then you can make the bio augment cost here like a single white to give this thing vigilance. And then you might actually consider doing this, because then it's like, okay, excuse me, sorry, I'm burping. Then it's like, okay, I have a 2 mana 2/3 that I've paid double white for, so that's already kind of worth it. I mean, that's a good card. It's above stat. It's above stat curve. And then at some point when you're playing your creatures, you might end up in a position where it's like turn 4 and you only have a 3-drop to play. Okay, well then play your 3-drop and give this thing vigilance, because it only costs 1, right? Vigilance is such a small bonus that like the fact that this costs 4, I think is just too much, way too much.
Yeah, I agree.
So, or you keep this 4, but you make the benefit
better,
a lot better. Yeah, so that like when because you're probably not using this until you're out of like cards to play, or you have a lot of mana. So like at that point you want this to actually do something that will matter. Like for example, giving this card flying would be a good example, right? As long as you pay 4 and then you give this thing flying, and now it's relevant again, because it can't be blocked anymore.
It should do something else to make the spy thing come across better.
Yeah, I agree. I was just using flying as an example, but
no, I just mean like as it is right now. I'm not really getting a spy feel from the card.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my other issue with this card is spies are almost always blue in Magic. So like imagine this was a blue card. So let's say this card was 1 and a blue for a 2/2. Okay? And then it had bio augment for 2 and 2 blue, and when it's augmented it has flying or something. Or maybe even better, this might work better for the spy thing. 2 and 2 blue, when it's augmented, it can't be blocked, so it's just like straight up unblockable. I think that would actually be a pretty good card.
Is there a mechanic that forces the opponent to reveal cards in their hand, like whenever you attack?
I mean, you could do stuff like that.
Yeah, something where like you're actually gathering like intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'm gonna say, I don't mind. I like commons, so it's.
I do too. I really like commons, and we've been saying a lot of negative things. Let me add that I do like the idea of having a common creature that makes itself more relevant in the late game when you have extra mana to spend. I think that's a good mechanic, right? So this bio augment mechanic, I think has a lot of interesting design space. I mean, it's very similar to Monstrous in a lot of ways, but we can ignore that for the moment. Oh, it might be cool actually if bio augment turned the creature into an artifact as well. That might be kind of cool. Does that work for bio augment? Bio augment?
Well, bio is like biology augment. Right? So
yeah.
It's like,
so maybe
I'm assuming it's referencing the like she has been turned into like a half cat.
Okay. So maybe artifact is not the way to go. But anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have let me just list off. I have a couple strikes against this card, and then we can get into the ratings. So, what a strike is the color identity of a spy. Let's just put it that way. White, you don't really see white spies. Okay. Second strike is it's very weak. Third strike is there's some formatting issues. So let me go ahead and do my rewording exercise here. So I believe bio augment, I believe it should be worded this way, and then we'll say 2 white 2 white, white. Put an augment counter on I'll just say this creature. I think that's better. If it doesn't, let's see, put an augment counter on this creature. If it doesn't have an augment counter on it. How about this? Let's actually change this. If this creature isn't augmented, it becomes augmented.
Yeah, I like that better.
Augment as a, let's see, activate as a sorcery. So you just leave it that way, and then as long as this card is augmented, it has vigilance. Okay. So I think that this would be, I think, a really nice way to reword this. Again, I think that this line is completely unnecessary, and I think because this is unnecessary, the counter itself, like, you're not gaining much of a benefit from putting the counter on this, other than the fact that it reminds the player what's going on. So, I mean, in that sense, like, you could do the counter thing. But they don't really do that for monstrous, I don't think. Let me take a look here. Let me just take a look-see. Monstrous. Yeah, so like here, Monstrosity 2. Oh, I see, but you do put counters on it, and it becomes monstrous.
That's because they're +1/+1 counters, though.
Yeah, so. But it sort of, the fact that you're putting +1/+1 counters on it shows you that it is monstrous in a sense, right? You don't just have to remember.
Fair enough.
So the counter, I could see the counter. I could see the counter. So okay, I'm okay with the counter. I just think that this doesn't need to be there. So okay, so strike for formatting, and I think that's probably it. What about you? Can you think of anything else?
I mean, I goofed a little bit about the art at the beginning. I think it's, depending on what the rest of the set looks like, I'm okay with like the more futuristic setting. Like, she's got a cell phone.
Mm-hmm. That's how she's spying.
So I don't have too many issues, other than it does seem weak.
Yeah, this is a very weak card. So,
but yeah, I mean, I think I'm okay with just giving it like a 5 out of 10. I think it's fine. Like, I like the bio augment, but I'm not gonna give like this mechanic any like these. I want to see like it used in a way that is interesting before I like say, okay, like, because augments sound like they could be cool, but this one isn't really augmenting in a way that like matches the card theme and doesn't actually make the card that much better because it costs so much. So I'm not going to give like a bonus for the mechanic.
Right. Yeah.
So
I'm with you on the same. I'm on the same page there. So yeah. I think 5 out of 10 for me also. I think I like where your head's at here. With like this type of a design for a common is actually a good design, right? It's like sort of like it's relevant early, and then you get to make it more relevant later by augmenting it. I think that's a great little design for a common, especially for limited. It's just here the execution doesn't quite work. So yeah, Agreed. I'll go with the 5 out of 10. But I'm I'm interested to see more augment and just see like where that can go. So, all right, that's our review of Heterochromatic Is it Neko or Neko?
Neko, I think.
Heterochromatic.
Actually, it might be Neko. I think it's Neko.
Heterochromatic Neko Spy. See you guys next time.